Hello everyone, this is Sandeep Kumar Sinha. Welcome back once again to my channel with the second part of nominal GDP and real GDP. The first part is already described by me in my previous video, whose link is given in the description. Now let's start. The second aspect of GDP, that is the GDP at constant prices, or also called as real GDP. Now so far as कंप्यूटेशन ऑफ जीडीपी इज कंसर्न, जो भी हम और जैसे जैसे जब भी हम कंप्यूट करते हैं जीडीपी, इफ द कैलकुलेशन ऑफ जीडीपी इज मेड एट द बेस ईयर्स प्राइसेस, that is the prices prevailing in the base years or the constant prices and not at the price of the accounting year, then what we get is called the GDP at constant prices or real GDP. Now the question arises, what is base year? What is base year's price? And how is this price taken to be constant? Let me explain it first. For the computation or during the computation of GDP, generally a year in the past is chosen in which there is minimum price fluctuations. So far as comparison of the figures of the past is simply concerned for making the or simply indicating the status of the economy, whether there is growth or degrowth in the economy. So that year in which the price fluctuation is minimum in the past, that is called as the base year, and the prices prevailing in that base year is called as base year's prices. At this base year's price, every year computation of GDP is done, and since every year, that is for the successive years to come, GDP is computed at this price that is prevailing in the base year, it is said that price is remaining constant. Thus, if GDP is calculated at constant prices or prices prevailing in the base year, it is said that it is the GDP at constant prices or real GDP. That is, I have written here that definition of GDP at constant prices or the simple real GDP. It is calculated at the prices prevailing in the base year. That is a constant prices. And how is this price taken to be constant? I just explained, because at this price in the base year, every year calculation of GDP is made, and that's why it is said that it is price is at the constant part. Now this GDP at constant price depends upon only one factor. I discussed in the past that there are two factors on which the GDP depends. First is quantity of output, and second one is the price level, that is P, and the product of the two is taken to be the value of GDP. Since the price is taken to be constant, there is only one factor on which GDP at constant prices depends. The GDP at this constant price, that depends upon only one factor. And what is that factor? That is quantity of output. सिर्फ इसी एक फैक्टर पर डिपेंड करता है. Why? Because the another factor price is taken to be constant. ये हमारा जीडीपी एट कांस्टेंट प्राइस को हम कैलकुलेट करते हैं. हम लास्ट में डिस्कस किए थे कि प्राइस इनटू क्वांटिटी. व्हाट इज दिस पी? दैट द प्राइस प्रिवेलिंग इन द बेस ईयर, which is taken to be constant during computation of GDP for every year in succession. And that's why, since price of the base year is taken to be constant, we can say that GDP varies directly with the quantity of आउटपुट. मतलब इनके बीच में एक सीधा संबंध है. व्हाट डज इट मीन? इफ द क्वांटिटी ऑफ आउटपुट इंक्रीजेस, देन जीडीपी ऑल्सो इंक्रीजेस, एंड इफ क्वांटिटी ऑफ आउटपुट डिक्रीजेस, then GDP would also decrease, because the second component price is taken to be constant, means neither increases nor decreases, it remains constant. Thus we can say, if the GDP increases due to the increase in quantity of output alone, price remaining constant, then it is termed as a real increase in GDP without any money illusion. and this simply confirms that there is a process of growth in the economy. Means economy has moved on the path of growth when compared to the previous years. Similarly, if GDP decreases due to decrease in the quantity of output, then the value of GDP also decreases, and it is termed as real decrease in GDP, which confirms that there is a process of degrowth. Therefore, we can say that GDP at that constant prices depends upon only one factor, how it varies. Since this GDP simply states the real position or real status of the economy, it is termed as real GDP. It is illustrated on the board with the help of schedule. Now look at the schedule that is drawn on the board. 2 years has been taken. One is 2011-12 and another one is 2019-20. This schedule shows the quantity of output and price of the 2 years 2011-12 and 2019 and 20. What is observed from this schedule? The price in 2011-12 for this commodity A was 100 per unit, but in the year 2019-20 it is 200 per unit. That is, it has become doubled. Similarly, the price of commodity B is 5 rupees per unit, wherein it is in 1920 it is 10 rupees per unit. Again it has doubled. Now look at the commodity C. It was 500 rupees per unit for the commodity in base year, that is 2011-12, and it is increased to 1000 per unit in 2019-20. 2011-12 for the computation of GDP, 2011-12 has been chosen as the base year, and the prices prevailing in this base year, that is 2011-12, this is the price which is taken to be constant for the computation of real GDP or GDP at constant prices. At this price in the current year 2011-12, what is the value of this commodity A? 20 units and 100 per unit. Total figure is 2000. Similarly, the value of commodity B is 100 into 5, that is 500, and commodity C 5 into 500, that is 2500. Total figure or total value that is in the market of the total commodities A, B and C for the year 2011-12, it is 5000. It is GDP at current prices. Now look for the figure in 2019-20. The output in comparison to the figure of 2011-12, that has decreased. Initially it was 20 units for commodity A, now it is only 15. It was 100 units for commodity B, it is only 75. And for this commodity C, it was initially 5 units, now it has decreased to 4 units. Means in the year 2019-20, price has increased, but the quantity of output decreased when compared to the figure of 2011 and 12. And whenever we calculate the current value of these goods for the year 2019-20, then what is the figure that we get? 7,750 rupees. This is the GDP at current prices for the year 2019-20. And when we compare these two figures, that is 5,000 for the year 2011-12 and 7,750 for the year 2019-20, what is our reading or observation? That figure has increased. So anyone who can look at the figure of both the years can be forced to conclude that the economy has moved on the path of growth. Means it is a simple situation of simple growth. But the economy का growth हुआ है. But when we calculate these values of output at this price, that is constant prices, means prices prevailing in the base years, then what is the actual value that is called real value? That is for the commodity A, 15 into 100, that is 1575 into 1, that is 5, 375, and 4 into 500, that is 2000. Total figure is 3875. This value for 2019-20 is calculated at the price that is base year's prices, and this figure shows that there is a decrease in the figure when compared to the figure of 2011-12. Now looking at these two figures, anyone can conclude that the economy has not grown on the path of development or not moved on the path of development, but it is a clear case of degrowth. Now the situation reverses. What we concluded earlier, 5,077.50, means there is a situation of economic growth. Now looking at these two figures, what do we conclude? That is, the economy has not grown. There is a situation of simple degrowth of the economy, means पूरा उल्टा सिचुएशन है. ये जो फिगर आया हमारा 3875 का, this is the figure that is GDP at constant prices, and since this figure indicates the real situation or real status of the economy, that it is a clear case of real decrease in the GDP value, means that is a situation of degrowth, and that's why this figure is called as GDP at constant prices or called as real GDP, because it indicates the real status of the economy, that is a status of डीग्रोथ कहते हैं. लेकिन अगर इन दोनों फिगर्स को हम अगर कंपेयर करते हैं, देन हम गलत कंक्लूजन ड्रॉ कर लेते हैं कि इकोनॉमी में ग्रोथ हुआ है, लेकिन एक्चुअल में क्या है कि इकोनॉमी में डीग्रोथ हुआ है. सिमिलर सिचुएशन इफ देयर इज एन इंक्रीज इन द आउटपुट, इसी तरीके से हम इसको भी एक्सप्लेन कर सकते हैं कि अगर इकोनॉमी में आउटपुट भी बढ़ता है सपोज फॉर द ईयर 2019-20 और प्राइस भी बढ़ता है, तो फिगर यहां पर दोनों ही केसेस में इंक्रीज शो करेगा. लेकिन यहां जो फिगर आएगा ये हमारा एट करंट प्राइसेस इसकी तुलना में बहुत ज्यादा होगा, तो हम वहां पे गलत कंक्लूजन क्या ड्रॉ करेंगे? इन दैट केस ऑफ इंक्रीज इन द आउटपुट, दैट द पेस ऑफ इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ इज वेरी वेरी हाई. But when we look at this figure, then that the real pace of economic growth means how much there is a growth percentage, कितना growth हुआ है compared to the last figure. Therefore, comparing these two situations, we can say that GDP at constant prices, that is real GDP, is a better indicator of economic welfare when compared to that nominal GDP or GDP at current prices. GDP at current prices कभी कभी मतलब सही तस्वीर इकोनॉमी का पेश नहीं करता, लेकिन रियल जीडीपी और जीडीपी एट कांस्टेंट प्राइसेस ऑलवेज इंडिकेट द रियल स्टेटस ऑफ द इकोनॉमी, वेदर देयर इज अ ग्रोथ और डीग्रोथ और सिंपली अ स्टैग्नेंट इकोनॉमी, मतलब ना आगे गया ना पीछे आया, जहां थे वहीं पर रह गए. तो ये हमारा चूंकि स्टेटस बताता है सही सही, इसलिए जीडीपी एट दैट इज कांस्टेंट प्राइसेस और रियल जीडीपी मे बी सेड टू बी अ बेटर इंडिकेटर ऑफ इकोनॉमिक welfare. That is all about real GDP or GDP at constant prices. I hope you understood it clearly. If the concept was very clear so far as my presentation is concerned, please like it, share it and subscribe it. तो फिर चलो मिलते हैं अगले वीडियो में. Till then, thank you, goodbye.